Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding. Here with another reaction for you. So the last time I did a reaction, it was Tyler Manion breaking down the 2024 Arnold Classic Open Division. And he basically just went pose by pose for the top two, broke down a couple of the other guys and how they did at the Arnold, what they need to do differently at the Arnold UK and other shows in the future. But now we are going to break down the Classic Physique recap from Tyler Manion. And Tyler Manion is going to introduce himself, but I don't think he mentions that he is a judge, and he was a judge at the Arnold Classic. So this is directly from a judge, not the head judge, but still a judge on that judging panel from the Arnold Classic. And that's why I think these insights and these videos that he's been putting out recently are so helpful. I love to see this. Usually the judging is confined to the judge's table, and we get a scorecard with a couple of numbers on it, and that's really about it. Usually judges don't do interviews post-show. Usually they give us vague things if they do an interview. You know, like, oh, needs to be bigger, needs to be more conditioned. That's not what we want. We want to know as fans, how these guys, these judges get to their decisions. Because sometimes we can see it, but sometimes we get a weird call or a call that most fans don't agree with. So we want to know what the judges saw. So I really got to commend Tyler for doing this. He is not only a judge, but he is the vice president of the NPC and IFBB League, and he judges at multiple other shows. So he's been putting out these recaps recently that he's been going into, good detail about some controversial decisions. He's done one for the Olympia, he's done one for the Texas Pro, and now he's doing one for the Arnold Classic, including the Classic Physique division. Now, like I said, I did do an open breakdown of his recap. You can watch that up in the corner, if I remember to put it up there. And that one, I really didn't notice anything aloof. I didn't have any big qualms with that. Some things, nitpicks, but we can agree to disagree on most things. However, this is the Classic Physique recap, and I really think there were some controversial decisions in here. Even though most of us thought Wesley should win, it was a one-point decision. And Brazilian fans love Ramone, and they probably thought Ramone should have won this, even though Wesley was absolutely killer at this show. So that was a controversial decision. And then in the third and fourth place spots, I did a whole video breakdown of this. And I said Brion should have placed higher. So we'll get into these kind of decisions, see what the judges saw, see what he saw at least, and then we could break that down, unpack all of that. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. I'm not going to do too many edits in this. I want you guys to get my raw reaction. So very limited cuts in here, maybe at the beginning, maybe a little bit at the end, if I get interrupted for some reason or say something really stupid. But other than that, this is my raw reaction, and this is my first time viewing the video. So you guys get my first initial thoughts of this video. Raw, mostly unedited. So if you guys like this video and like this format, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos, and let me know if you want to see particular videos like this.
Hi everyone, Tyler Manion here,
Hello,
Vice
Tyler.
President of the NPC and IFBB Pro League, and today we're going to be going over the recap for the Classic Physique division of the Arnold Classic. First, we're going to go over the comparison between Wesley and Ramone, and we'll do that pose by pose.
Perfect.
Now, before we go into it, I think this is a good lesson for all competitors that you don't have to have the same structure as everybody else to win a show. As you know, Wesley's waist is definitely a little bit wider then Ramone's, then Chris's, then even, Urs and Brion. However, Wesley has now built up his shoulders and his width so much to compensate for that, where he has a very, very crazy shape and taper as well.
Okay, now he just said something pretty important there. We all know Classic Physique is classic. They are looking for the classic shape. And what we kind of deduce, or what we kind of, I think some judges have even said shape matters more in classic, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. That means some guys will get pushed out of the division, but it's still just one thing. And Tyler Manion is saying that the structure is important, but if you do enough to outwork your structure, you still have to have a baseline, very decent, very classic structure. Like Wesley's structure isn't like open bubble gut or anything, or super narrow shoulders. He still has a very good structure, just not on the level of like a Chris Bumstead, for example, who has probably the perfect structure. He is literally the standard of Classic Physique. But you don't have to have that, and especially if you outwork that, you don't have to have it, because Wesley, I think this is probably what he's going to say, came in with supreme muscularity and nailed his conditioning, which he's been doing recently. And he's built up so many other gaps in his physique that I really think he can outwork his wider waist. But that's important. I want to see how Tyler also spins third and fourth place. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I think he'll probably bring up the structure argument again, but I think he may contradict himself, but we'll see. But that is glad to see glad to hear from Tyler, an actual judge, someone who, is kind of setting the standard. When you judge big shows, you are setting the standard. So someone who is technically setting the standard along with a couple of other people, it's nice to hear that shape is very important, but it's not everything as long as you do your homework.
So all shapes and sizes can come in and do very well in this classic physique division.
Unless you're Brion, apparently.
Now let's get to the poses.
Okay.
First up is the front double bicep pose. Now, here in pre-judging, which is where the judging takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, guys, classic physique judging, it takes place in the morning. At night is a confirmation round where we relook at everything. Okay? But the real
Okay, so he's probably referring to the little bit of controversy that the scorecard is getting. So usually in the scorecard, especially now that the posing round has been taken out, you have 3 columns. You'll have pre-judging, finals, and then the total score. So usually how this works is both nights are judged, or if it's a one-day show, both events during the day are judged. So you'll have a score at the pre-judging, score at the finals, and they'll average those together and give you the final score. And that's usually how it's been for years. I think over decades at this point. Except for Classic Physique, because they are apparently taking out finals. Because on the scorecard, you had one score. And then I guess it was just one score because it was pre-judging. Finals was left blank, or maybe wasn't even on the score sheet, and then you had the total score. So you really only had one score. It was just in 2 different placings because they don't have to average the scores together. They just had one score for prejudging. Now that's very odd. It really begs the question, are you guys even judging finals? Did you guys just add it together? Are you guys just, pulling these scores out of nowhere? Why are you not judging? Why even have a 2-day show? Why even have finals at all? Just make it prejudging and be done, and it would make the show go so much smoother. So that's interesting. Tyler just said they look at everything, but notice the phrasing there. They relook at everything. Well, yeah, they look at them and open too, but they judge them and score them. That's interesting. Maybe I should continue the video before I go on.
Judging is done in the morning for Classic Physique. Now, in the morning, Wesley straight up nailed it. Everything was crisp. Every line was deep. Okay, in that front double bicep.
Okay, well, maybe that's it. So that wasn't a very in-depth explanation. They said they do look at finals, but he didn't necessarily say they score it. Very odd decision, but apparently that's all we're going to get on to that. So apparently morning prejudging at least matters a whole lot more because finals may not even matter at all. But anyway, let's get into the pose by pose.
He is taking up more space on the stage than Ramone.
Wesley's huge, taller than Chris.
His taper is just as good. His arms
I would disagree.
are even better. His chest is full.
Yeah.
His quads are taking up the same amount of space as Ramone's, and the cuts and the lines are much, much deeper. Overall, top to bottom, he is balanced, and he looks better than Ramone in this pose.
Okay.
Ramone, for me, looked a little bit downsized. He also did not have clear separation in his quads.
Yes.
He also hurts himself with his posing.
Yes, absolutely.
He does not bring his arms up the way he needs
doesn't
to bring
know how
them.
to pose.
He stops short. His arms are too low, which affects his taper and affects how his lats pop out. His posing hurts him considerably in a lot of these poses.
Let this be a lesson to everyone. Posing matters, especially in the mandatories. It's not just because, you need to put on a good posing routine. No, nobody cares about that anymore. It's not even scored. Posing hurts because if you cannot present your physique, you don't present well. That's as simple as that. It's a visual sport. You have to be able to... we don't go body part for body part off the jump. And what I mean by that is we don't measure your biceps, we don't measure your legs, and whoever has the biggest measurement wins. No, you need to be able to present every body part effectively and bring it all together as a whole. Now, a couple of things he said about Wesley, I agree with most of it. The legs, diced. Arms, better. Better peaks, more mass there compared to Ramone. Now, better taper? No. Wesley has higher lats and a thicker waist. He just doesn't have the taper of Ramone. Ramone has better taper. Much smaller waist and the more pronounced V shape. Wesley kind of has the palm tree look where it goes out at the lats and then straight down. You have a little bit of this straight down into the waist, and honestly, the legs don't even sweep out that much, so it's like straight down all the way to the feet. But Ramone has a much better taper. But I do understand the better arms, the better polish, and better legs. You could probably give this pose to Wesley, and I think in an open context, I would be more apt to do that. But in classic, to me, the overall flow and shape matters a little bit more. I don't like how Ramone is hitting the pose, but he still is carried by that shape, that just genetic shape. So I personally prefer Ramone in here, even though he has the worse arms and maybe slightly worse separation, simply because the shape is better, the outline, the silhouette is better. I still think it's very close though, and Wesley is not a wrong choice, absolutely. I just think that kind of style of judging, going body part for body part, and not really examining flow and the overall silhouette as much is more apt for open, but I think I'd be fine with either gentleman winning this pose. But I do like what he said about Ramone. Fix your posing. I can't believe it's been years now and it's been getting a little bit better. He just, no one's around him apparently to tell them, hey, you need to put your arms here. Remember to keep this engaged. Tilt a little bit here. No one's telling him these things. And they're not even like big things. Like holding your arms down like this and not propping them up. That's a very basic posing cue. You should absolutely know. And he has been doing his pose like this for years. So I don't know what's going on in Brazil, but he needs to get a real posing coach, or just maybe he's surrounded by yes men. Maybe that's what it is. Someone just needs to tell him very simple fixes to these poses. It's not like we're asking him to completely overhaul the pose because he's so great structurally. Like he can get by in most poses, but simple things like that, it's rookie mistakes.
Next up is the side chest pose. Now in the side chest, you can see Wesley made big improvements in his side leg.
Yeah.
His side leg, his hamstring is now more balanced to his quad. Upper body wise, his chest was extremely full. His arms and shoulders were very, very big. And when you compare it to Ramone, he has more width across the top from shoulder to shoulder.
Wesley's a big dude.
His chest is thicker, his arms look better, and his side leg is comparable. Same thing here with Ramone. He likes to shrug his back shoulder up to try to push his chest over, which hurts him when it comes to his width from up top.
Yeah.
He's always moving around in his pose. He does not stay static, which tends to make people mess up their posing. And for him, he definitely hurts himself here as well.
Yep.
Again, the cuts and the separation, Wesley had much more detail than Ramone as well.
Okay. Hopefully he was done with the side chest pose. It doesn't really matter. I don't really disagree with anything there. Wesley is huge, and in a pose like the side chest pose, it is more apt for an open style physique. Someone that carries a lot more mass and has a lot more detail. So, shape doesn't really matter in the side chest as much. So Wesley was able to kind of bully Ramone with Wesley's superior size, detail through the chest, more width through the shoulders, bigger pecs themselves. And honestly, the only area I'd give to Ramone is maybe the side leg. But honestly, Wesley has brought it up so much that he's not necessarily losing as much for it to matter in the grand scheme of things.
So right now I have it 2-0 in poses for Wesley.
That's fair. I have it 1-1, but
next up was the back double bicep pose. Now the back double bicep pose in the morning, Wesley's back, it had a lot of depth. The taper was great. His shoulder and arms were big, separated, and detailed. Now you go on to his lower body. Yes, does he need more hamstrings and glutes? This is definitely the main critique for his physique.
Absolutely.
However, in the morning with the conditioning, his hamstrings were separated and fuller, and it was enough for me to give him the nod in this back double bicep pose over Ramone. Now, why was it enough? Is because Ramone, his back, the width of it did not compare really to Wesley's.
Sure.
His depth was not great as well. He was pinching a lot through his traps, not opening up his lats all the way. I think that definitely hurt him in this pose. Now, lower body wise, his legs are thicker and more complete than Wesley's. However, again, the conditioning compared from Wesley to Ramone, it was pretty differentiated with Wesley being more conditioned and more separated.
In this specific pose, I don't know about the conditioning being that different. Separation mainly, but overall condition, I think it's pretty close. In this pose, I think the backs are pretty close. Wesley does have a lot more width. He wins through the arms and delts for sure. But I kind of like how Ramone's back is a little more detailed all the way down, and his lats don't end so abruptly. And then the lower body, I definitely prefer Ramone's thicker legs. Wesley clearly needs more, I would say maybe a little more glutes, but definitely more hamstrings. And whatever that leg stance is has got to stop. Like, I just talked about Ramone, and Tyler did too, about how Ramone's posing sucks. But Wesley, that's a rookie. Like, what are you even doing with your legs? Please change it. I definitely see the argument for Wesley here, though. I I think overall, I think in size, he's just so overwhelming that I would probably give him this pose. But I do like Ramone's detail. I definitely don't think this is a slam. Maybe it is. I wouldn't say it's a slam the door in Ramone's face kind of victory. Um, but I think it's pretty solid. We'll say that.
So overall, top to bottom again, Wesley won this pose for me, and it was 3-0.
Okay.
The next up is the ab and thighs pose. This pose I gave to Ramone.
I think that's fair.
Wesley's abs are not separated and detailed like his.
Yeah.
He kind of crunches down a little bit too much. So Ramone has great abs especially when he blows all the air out. The abs are deep and separated.
Just needs to work on the pose
He pulled
itself.
the vacuum pretty well, actually. Now his quads still did not have the same type of separation that they needed to, but overall, when you look at the flow of the pose, he was better than Wesley here, which will make it 3-1. And then we get into your favorite classic pose. Again, Ramone hurts himself with this pose
because he doesn't know how to pose
all the way. He doesn't raise his arm where he's making the bicep flex. He does not raise it up the way he should.
I have Wesley here
down
easily.
Into the pose. He's not getting his lats out all the way.
I don't know what Tyler's going to say, but right off the bat, I'll just chime in here. Wesley wins this pose easily. He won the abs and thighs. Ramone won the abs and thighs. And then Wesley wins the favorite classic pose, which I don't really know how they judge it. I don't think he's going to describe it. I wish he would. But better arms, better legs, overall better execution too for Wesley. And that's a big part of the favorite classic pose. You want to pick poses you look good in and that you can do well. So I think Wesley wins this one, and I think I'll do a tally at the end.
Quads were not as separated as they needed to be here.
Yeah.
Wesley standing right next to him. His chest was full. His arms look great. His
Gets
shoulder looks great.
For sure.
His
Wesley
looks
just
great,
so
and
big.
his quads are separated and taking up just as much as room on stage as Ramone's. So,
but to be fair, I like Brion over there.
Wesley took this from Ramone.
Yeah.
I think for Wesley, the main focus for him is hamstring.
Okay. He's going to critique a little bit. I had Wesley winning 3, maybe 4 poses, and Ramone winning 2, maybe 1. So yeah, I would say 2 is probably Ramone's ceiling, and 3 is probably Wesley's floor, which means it's kind of close. It's a 1-point decision with my own judging. It's 1-point decision for them, but their judging is different, obviously, because they go by a panel. So, my 1-point decision is found by a different way from their 1-point decision. But overall, it's kind of close. I think Ramone is so close because of his overall classic structure. But this is a great case of, let me say this right, hard work beating talent when talent doesn't work hard. Ramone had a 6-week prep, and he was 30 pounds over the weight limit at 6 weeks out. You can't do that. You're going to your body will not peak correctly. You will be flat as a board, and you're going to run into so many health problems dropping 30 pounds of mainly. No, it's not just fat. Ramone, he takes a break, but he doesn't get fat. Not even close. And even though he probably stays around his weight cap, cutting 30 pounds, I mean, it's coming from muscle, and it's going to make your physique worse. Take a look at what Brion has done. He's kind of jumped back a little. He's kind of been rejuvenated with the added weight cap. But Ramone, he had a big problem with peaking. He could have been more separated, could have been more full, and he was downsized. So, I mean, I don't understand why he couldn't, at least why he had to take a break in between the Olympia and the Arnold. I think he could have at least, pulled back. He could have pulled back a lot. But from what I've heard, he stopped training and everything. So it is a case of hard work beating talent when talent doesn't work hard. Simple as that.
Strings and glutes to complete his physique for the Olympia. He needs to bring this trademark conditioning and fullness that he just
We need to
brought
see this
the
again
show.
from Wesley.
I've judged Wesley quite a few times, and he has bounced around when he has not peaked right.
Absolutely.
He's done great, and he's done not so great. So this just shows you that we see what we see on the day of the show. It doesn't matter what happened previously.
Yep.
This guy was
That's
7th
good to
at the
hear.
Olympia, and he just beat the reigning
Everyone
Arnold
but
Classic
Chris.
champion and reigning 2-time runner-up at the Olympia, because he made improvements with his physique and he nailed it on that day.
He was just
When
undeniable.
it comes to Ramone, I was able to find Ramone backstage and really work on him with his posing, because his posing holds him back big time. It doesn't matter who it's against, any of these guys. He's not posing to his potential. Finally, I got to work with him, and it's amazing just backstage after the finals what a difference changing some of his poses made to his physique.
Absolutely, because he has
also
everything else going for
He
him.
needs to add the size back on that he had. He needs to add more
I think a better
density,
peak would help him a
especially to
lot.
his back. That was one of his main focuses, width and density to his back, but just overall the size and the separation that we saw him bring prior to this, he needs to get back to that level and exceed it if he wants to win and be contending to win for Mr. Olympia title.
I think he's still there.
We have Urs and Brion, who were in 3rd and 4th.
I want to put this all out there. After watching the live stream, after comparing HD photos, I am still behind the notion that Brion was robbed. And I don't think it was close. I don't really think it was close. I think it was a 3-point decision in Brion's favor. So they didn't think it was super. It wasn't super solid for Urs to place higher, and he ended up placing 3rd, and Brion ended up placing 4th. But it wasn't a 1-point decision. So 3-point decision, I think that comes down to one judge, although I'm not entirely sure. So it is maybe kind of close. They were both well out of the top 2, but still a 3-point decision. I don't know. I definitely don't agree with that. Like I said, I didn't see it was close, but in Brion's favor. Anyway, let's get into what Tyler has to say, because I'm definitely interested to see what he has to say about this controversy.
4th, but I think this is a good time to educate everybody. At these big shows like the Arnold and the Olympia, we have 11 judges at the table.
Okay.
So when you see the scores aren't straight scores, meaning for 3rd place, straight scores would be 15.
Mm-hmm.
For 4th place, it would be 20.
Yep.
So at the Olympia, you saw it was 17 to 18 between them. Here it was 16 to 19.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a 1-point decision, that means 6 judges like one person and 5 judges like the other. At this show, 7 judges liked Urs, 4 judges like Brion.
So it was a 1-judge decision.
I want to explain this because,
which is basically
for me,
a 1-point decision.
See how
so maybe it was
Brion
closer.
could beat Urs at this show.
Interesting.
So when we look at the front double bicep from prejudging, Urs to me was off when it comes to his trademark conditioning and separation.
Yes.
Now in the front double here, Brion, you can see his arms are better. He has a great taper.
Absolutely,
Even though
no
from
question.
the front, his quads are a good bit smaller, and it leaves him a little bit unbalanced in the front poses with how small his quads have gotten. They're very clearly separated.
Yes.
It still flows good enough where Urs's
definitely.
quads weren't showing, the normal separation he has, and I think he's lacking in the bicep department. For me,
Brion wins that easily.
Brion takes it.
Good.
Now here in the side
Glad we agree.
chest, this is more of what I would say would be a toss-up pose for the judges.
In my own comparison, I had this as a quality versus quantity debate. Quality, Brion wins. There's a bit more quantity in Urs's, he's bigger in the ribcage and slightly bigger in the pecs. He does not have the detail of Brion, though. I personally sided with Brion on this because I personally love detail more. I think that is, I just really am a fan of great condition. So I gave this to Brion. I definitely could see the argument for Urs taking this. I think this one is a bit of a toss-up. So on this one, I think Urs can have it. I would go with Brion.
Brion's chest is flatter, but it is striated. His side leg still looks good. His arms and shoulders look good as well.
Yep.
Urs's arms and shoulders look a little bit better in the side chest than I think they do in the front double bicep pose.
Definitely.
However, he still needs to add more mass here. His chest is actually rounder and fuller than Brion's and still conditioned, and the side leg is very comparable. So for this pose, I can see how different judges can see it different ways, but for me at this show, I had Brion taking this pose.
Awesome.
So next is the back double bicep pose. This pose, Urs really, really needs to improve on. he wasn't opening up his back all the way at prejudging as well. He still needs more depth and detail back there. Again, the
It's not
arms and
even
shoulders come
close.
into play because we're looking at the arms and shoulders as well. That needs to come up.
I
From the
don't even
waist
need to
down,
talk.
his legs are great.
I'm just gonna let Tyler talk through this one. This is not close. This isn't an argument. You can skip this, Tyler. We don't even need to look at it.
Great. He has great hamstring development. His legs take up, a good amount of space on stage. He has good leg width. Now, when you look at Brion has one of the best back doubles for Classic Physique.
Best back
His
on the
back
Arnold
is
stage this year.
insanely detailed with a lot of depth to it. His biceps are peaked. There's separation. His shoulders look great. And from the rear, his legs still look good. He has very detailed hamstrings.
Yeah.
And his leg width from the back is much better than his leg width from the front.
Definitely.
Next up is the ab and thigh pose.
I'm interested in this one.
And his leg width from the back is much better than his leg width from the front.
There was an ad on my video. I didn't pay for YouTube Premium. Anyway, he's going to the abs and thighs pose now.
Next up is the ab and thigh pose. Here, Brion poses a little bit small for me.
That's fair.
He still has great abs. However, his taper doesn't look good. He's a little bit too crunched down.
Urs has a blocky waist too for the division.
He use obviously more to his quads in this pose.
I think in this pose, Brion's quads definitely get exposed. The most out of any shot. I think he outworked them from the side, from the back, and they don't really skip a beat in those areas. But from the front double, he was all right. In the abs and thighs, definitely a bit smaller. I did end up giving Urs this one because I think he just had a greater sum of parts. I think his quads are still good. Wish he brought more detail. And his abs, although they're on a thicker waist for the division, Brion also has a thicker waist, but Urs has the better abs. So I just ended up giving Urs the narrow victory. But we'll see what Tyler says.
It would definitely help him. Urs has a great ab and thigh pose. His abs are very, very deep. He has a great taper.
Yeah.
He is able to flex his quad to show the striations and the detail in it. So for me, Urs takes the ab and thigh pose.
Okay.
And then what I would say again is a toss-up pose for your favorite classic pose. Urs really shows off his shape and detail to his physique with this
hourglass
pose,
figure for sure.
with the half lat spread, half front double bicep hybrid up top. He's able to make his chest look a little bit thicker in this pose. He's able to show off his taper a little bit better.
Everything but
his
a good
legs,
bicep.
Still look pretty good. They could still be a little bit more separated here in the morning. Brion does the crucifix pose, which is an awesome pose.
Well, he's not showing the crucifix. He must have been watching some other video because that is the pose I did use for Brion. And this one, Brion's doing the one-arm pose. Something more similar to Urs, not exactly. Something more similar to Urs. But for the video, for the comparison I used the photo of Brion doing the kind of half crucifix pose with I think he does it with a vacuum now. I gave him the pose. Brion is an exquisite poser, underrated in that regard. But Urs gets a lot of hype because he dances or whatever, and Brion did do a little dancing this year himself. But Urs just has so much hype going on behind him. He was a shoo-in for the best poser in Classic Physique before he even stepped on the stage. So he got the actual best posing award, Urs did. So maybe Tyler goes with Urs on this one. I think Brion is actually better at picking poses that show off his physique. And when you do the crucifix pose for him, I think he easily wins this one. I think this one, when you go with this pose for Brion, I would maybe lean to Urs. But based on the photo I used in my comparison, I went with Brion, so, it's a toss-up. But we'll see. We'll continue.
Legs are a little bit small. His quads are small in the front.
Yeah.
They need to have more sweep. They need to have more width from the front here. He also just looks a little bit
That's the
smaller
crucifix
in this pose.
That pose beats Urs. I mean, they both chose poses about the arms. Brion has the better arms, and he should be picking poses like that. Urs probably shouldn't. I think he probably should have gone with the front lat spread, but this pose is also very structure dominant, so I see why he chose it, because he still has the hourglass look going on. But Brion, with the quality, with those amazing arms, with the tricep hang and the bicep peaks, even though they're kind of flattened out, his legs don't really look that small, and he brings the detail to counteract that. His flow looks great. When you go for this pose, like I said, I used this crucifix photo in my comparison. I think it's Brion all day.
Just in stature, but when you're comparing him, you see that he was next to Wesley or Ramone. At the prejudging, he looks just a little bit smaller. So size-wise,
that's fair. He's a shorter guy.
Less big than these guys that are taking up more space on stage.
You can definitely notice it next to
Brion's
Wesley.
detail here really shown through. So overall, you can see that even if a judge may have someone in third or in fourth, the whole panel, that's why there's 11 judges. So just because I think something or Steve thinks something or Sandy thinks something doesn't mean that's how the whole entire show is judged. That's why we have 11 people, and we get rid of, at these shows, the 3 highs and the 3 lows from the scores. So that's how the scores happen. And I think going forward for these two, I already mentioned he needs to improve the arms and the shoulders.
And the
His
back,
conditioning,
for sure.
I've seen him
And he
better
just needs
before.
to be better. But so it doesn't sound like Tyler just flat out said, and he just proved that he had Brion winning 3 poses to Urz's 1 or 2. So Brion may have won 4 poses. I don't think he actually said who he had winning the classic pose, but it doesn't matter because Brion already won the rear double, the side chest, and the front double. For both of us, actually, we were in agreement. So he won 3 poses to Urz's 2 max, maybe even 4-1. So Tyler clearly thinks that Brion should have won. But like he said, there's 11 total judges now at these bigger shows. I didn't know that. I thought there was 9. So they've added 2 judges, and they kind of do a median. So they take out the highest scores and they take out the lowest scores, and then that leaves you with the final scores that do count. And in this case, it was just a 1 judge decision. So that's pretty much a 1-point decision. When you get down to the lower placings, because of the way the numbers actually fill in, that is basically a 1-point decision. So it was still close. It was still close. And I think it was at the Olympia too. But, I mean, that's kind of a consolation prize. I think if we're going to make it close, Brion wins with better quality. But it's glad to see Tyler does agree with me. But apparently the other judges didn't. So I'd like to hear their recaps more than Tyler's at this point, to be honest. But I'm glad we're in agreement. I'm glad someone sees Brion's quality.
He looked better at the finals than he did for sure in the morning. But still, it wasn't the best that we've seen. For Brion, I think he's just needs to add more size. His legs, especially his quads, which 3 poses are coming from the front. So the downsized legs really take a toll on him. He needs to try to bring those back up. Overall, size-wise, I think he's just down a little bit, which as you get older, it is tougher to maintain that size.
For sure. He's 44, 45.
And then the side chest pose, his chest is striated, but it can also be rounder and fuller.
Yeah.
So he can.
So the problem with Brion is that we hear it all the time, and I think we all agree he needs more size, particularly in the legs. The problem is, even with the 5 to 7 pounds he added, which did help, by the way. Look at the legs in 2022 versus 2024, or even back then in 2023, when you had a year between shows. He hasn't added the full effect of that 5 to 7 pounds. I think it was 7 pounds because he's a shorter guy. He hasn't added that full effect, right? He can come in fuller, but as he adds the muscle back, we'll see more of this weight cap and the benefit realized. Already he's looking great. Already he's added enough. He's added enough to at least be competitive with Urz, and I think beat Urz. He has more fullness in the legs, but like even with 7 pounds, it's just not enough. And he could still keep his classic lines if he was able to add 14 pounds, double it. But the problem is he doesn't have 14 pounds. And even though these 7 pounds will help, I don't know how much they're going to help. So there's not much left in the video. Let's just keep going.
Add a little bit more there. Now, Classic Physique is a crazy talented division, as we've seen over the last couple of years. If you're not on, there's about probably 8 guys in the world that will have something to say if they're fully on. So you can't afford to slip, you can't afford to be off, and you can't afford to not bring your best because, again, Ramone won't be there, but the other 3 guys are going to be in the UK in 2 weeks.
Yep.
We have no idea how they're going to peak and how they're going to look on stage day. No one is so far ahead of the other that they can afford to just be off and think they're going to win the show.
Yeah.
So it's a very exciting time for this category, and I'm looking forward to seeing these guys in 2 weeks.
That's the recap. And honestly, I went into this video expecting it to be a little more combative. I thought Tyler and I, given that he's a judge and the judges as a collective went with Urz, because that was the main thing I was focused on, the Urz versus Brion battle. I thought we would disagree more. And even on the Ramone versus Wesley thing, he said it was close. I agree with that. He said Brion and Urz was a little bit closer. I don't necessarily agree, but he did still have Brion beating Urz. I had Brion beating Urz by more, but Tyler does agree with me, or I agree with Tyler, that Brion should have taken this. But like he said, when it shakes out with all the judges, when they all get together, the collective as a whole pushed Urza ahead just by one judge. Remember, just by one judge. So overall, I was not expecting us to agree so much. Maybe that means I'm particularly good at judging. Who knows? But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. This is going to be the last one I do for a little bit, unless he comes out with some for the Arnold UK. And I hope he does. I hope he does this for every major show. I absolutely love to see this. And this is what we need. For a while, the judging has been confined to the table. We get 2 numbers, in Classic Physique's case 1, and that's it. No comments, no interviews, and they give vague statements in their interviews if they do it. And it's usually just the head judge. And like Tyler said, this is about multiple judges. 11 judges, right? 5 of which that count. So I want to hear from more of them. Honestly, I want to hear from the ones that did have Urs ahead of Brion, or maybe some of them that had Ramone ahead of Wesley for what their reason was. I want to hear from more of these judges. So maybe we can get some more transparency. I appreciate what Tyler's doing, but after all, he is one judge. Maybe we can get a comment section on the scorecards. That way the judges can write in their final thoughts and be a little bit more in depth on their analysis. But overall, how did you guys see this one? How do you think about my analysis? What do you think of Tyler's breakdown? And if you guys like these reactions and want to see more, definitely hit the like button and let me know what you think of this format. The video may have lagged. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to watch that back, but hopefully it didn't. I'm definitely getting the hang of this format. I don't usually do these videos at all. I don't even usually use a face cam at all, but I definitely like Tyler doing these recaps and breakdowns, and I want to break those breakdowns down. So if you want to see more, like the video so that way I know you guys like it. Obviously, that's what the like button's for. Or if you dislike it, it's kind of hard to see dislikes on YouTube, so leave me a comment about all your hate. Maybe you disagree with me, maybe you have a suggestion on how I can improve this format. Whatever it is, let me know down below. And then finally, subscribe for more. If you guys want to see more recaps like this one or more of my other videos, my comparisons, my other show recaps that I do personally with my own analysis, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more. So, like the video, subscribe for more. With all that said, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.